All right, guys, Ronan MMA here. Welcome back to the channel. UFC 315 Belal Muhammad versus Jack Della Maddalena takes place this Saturday in Montreal, Quebec. And I want to give a breakdown and my pick for every single fight on this card, starting with the opener on the early prelims and ending with the main event. I will put timestamps down in the description below. Like, subscribe, all that great stuff. Okay, let's get into it with the first fight of the night, which is Brad KATONA versus Beksat ALMAKHAN. Okay, now I'm going to be going with Beksat here, but I will say I think Brad KATONA could be a live dog. Now, obviously, ALMAKHAN had his debut against Umar Nurmagomedov and had that one moment in the first round where he dropped him and it looked like he might get the finish. Now, the reason I think KATONA could be a live dog is because, one, he's never been knocked out. That's how Beksat wins almost all of his fights. And two, because he makes things very ugly sometimes, okay? He likes to go forward a lot, and I have a feeling that he will be shooting takedowns a lot, even if he's not successful in those attempts. But to get Beksat backing up and maybe, not be able to plant and throw as well as he would like to, and obviously KATONA doesn't have the control ability or even the takedown ability as somebody like Umar Nurmagomedov, but if he does get Beksat down, I'd hope to see some more technical get-ups from Beksat. In the Umar fight, when he would get back to his feet, it was with a lot of explosion and things like that, just kind of Derek Lewis style standing up. Now, ultimately, I do think Beksat will be able to find enough shots on the feet to win rounds. KATONA is not the most damaging individual, so it's going to be tricky for him to get respect coming back his way from Beksat, making him hesitant to throw or anything like that. But if Beksat kind of gets like stun locked or something over takedowns the way that he did against Umar, then obviously that could be a problem. Okay, now I think it'll be cool to see him on a proper camp, not taking a short notice fight against one of the best guys in the division. And the dude is nasty on the feet, so I am interested to see what he can do against someone whose ground game is not quite as threatening as who he made his debut against, obviously. Okay, now let's move up the card to Daniel Santos versus Jungyong Lee. Now, I'm going to be going hesitantly with Daniel Santos to get this one done. The reason I'm a little hesitant is the lack of activity from Santos. Okay, he's had only 2 fights since November of 2022, having been scheduled against Marcos, Said Nurmagomedov, and Davy Grant in that time, all of them being canceled. Also, now, I don't think it'd be right to say that Santos is chinny because he's not really been knocked out, but we have seen him get dropped and things like that in the past. I think something that he'll have to do is go forward a lot. This guy's going to be at a 6-inch reach disadvantage, so Daniel Santos is going to have to find a way to get inside or use a lot of kicks and things like that. And something that allowed Haider Emil to finish Lee in Lee's last fight was just kind of creating chaos, just going forward and throwing, not allowing Lee to sit on the outside and kind of pick you apart. Don't allow him to use his length. Just kind of get in there and start trading. And Jungyong Lee was kind of, more than willing to engage in that, which was ultimately to his detriment. Now, something I've noticed about Lee is also that since he's been in the UFC, he's been unable to get a finish, as well as has been finished for the first time in his entire career. So perhaps a lot of what we saw from him on road to the UFC and things like that was fighting guys who are maybe just a little more green and haven't faced the best competition themselves the way that he hadn't up until he got to the UFC. The odds are very close on this fight, and I think that's perfectly reasonable, but I do think Santos edges it out. Okay, now let's move up the card to the next fight, which is Marc-Andre Bario versus Bruno Silva. This is another one I was a little bit torn on, okay? Both these guys kind of cooked at this point in time, both on losing streaks. I feel like I want to say Marc-Andre Bario, but the problem I have with that is anytime he fights someone who the power threat is there, it's like he's terrified and he just gets destroyed and he's not willing to implement the thing that he's best at. I don't think he has even a strong enough submission game to take advantage of Bruno Silva's 7 submission losses. And on the feet, I trust Silva to not get knocked out more than I do Marc-Andre Barrio. Now, the thing that Bario is good at is setting a pace, right? But honestly, I have not seen that in his last few fights. I got to go back to his fight with like Julian Marquez to be able to point to that. So if he can set a pace, shoot takedowns, make it an ugly fight, apply a lot of pressure, be successful on some of those takedowns, then I could see him getting it done. Maybe kind of tiring out Bruno Silva and getting a ground and pound TKO late in the second or something like that. But if he's wary of Silva's power and not willing to engage and lets himself get pressured, and, you know, a fight that comes to mind is against Joe Pyfer, where Marc-Andre Barrio looked like a deer in fucking headlights in that fight, okay? So if he fights like that, I could see him getting put out. I'm going to lean Marc-Andre Barrio, but, you know, again, I could see this one going either way. Now let's move up the card to Navajo Sterling versus Ivon Urslon. I'm going to be going with Navajo Sterling here. He's very green still, right? 6-0, which could potentially be an issue. But I think he will, in classic city kickboxing fashion, stay on the outside, chop away with leg kicks, use lots of feints, and all the rest of it. You can tell just from watching him, like, you could black him out completely, turn him into a shadow, and you can see the city kickboxing influence on him, sliding with the rear leg a lot, lots of hip feints, jab feints, like tons of, it's just, you know, classic city kickboxing. Now, something that I've noticed from Navajo Sterling is, okay, he's got this weird tick, and it reminds me of Diego Lopez touching his throat or Dustin Poirier touching his shorts. Navajo Sterling, every few seconds or so, at least when they are kind of at like that mid-range, touches his fucking nose, okay? And maybe Urslon could try and time that, because it's like a solid second where he touches his nose and kind of resets off of it. It's kind of strange, and it's very, very, very consistent. So I'd be interested to see if once he gets put in like a bad, chaotic situation, if that tick tries to come into play here. Because when Diego Lopez gets into crazy exchanges and situations, he's not trying to touch his throat. But as soon as the fight resets, it's like he's like, fuck, I need to. So he does it real quick. Like, so I'm interested to see if Navajo Sterling can maybe like curb that a bit. It's a very strange tick. And I know that a second might not seem like a lot, but in a fight that is in fact a very long time, okay? Also, sometimes Sterling really overextends on his right hand, which got him countered with a left hand on the Contender Series. It was a solid shot, so credit to him, he ate it. But I feel like, you know, he's got to be mindful of that as well. Urslon can absolutely crack. I feel like Urslon's best course of action here is to try and pressure him early, get inside. One thing that city kickboxing guys kind of struggle with a bit is actual, like, in the pocket boxing. They like to be at that mid-range or so, even at long range. You know, looping shots, kind of. Like, they get away with it to some extent. Israel Adesanya did for a long time, up until Sean Strickland took perfect advantage of that. But the counter that Izzy would land on, like a Robert Whittaker and guys like that, it's, you know, you're pretty open, and you've got to be really relying on your length and your ability to get out of the way. And I don't think that Navajo Sterling has that kind of experience under his belt to be fucking around like that. So, you know, but I do think that Sterling will be able to kind of just pick Urslon's leg apart, poke at him with jabs and whatever else. Maybe he has to survive a few barrages. And if Urslon, you know, if he had more submissions on his resume or something, I'd lean on him to turn it into an uglier dogfight where he's shooting a lot and trying to tire him out and things like that. But mostly what we see of him is first round knockouts, and I just don't think that will happen here. Anyways, moving up the card to Modestas Bukauskas versus Ion Coutilaba. Man, I want to pick Ion Coutilaba real bad, but I do think he has problems against guys that are more clean and more technical on the feet. Now, to be fair, he's won 2 in a row, and he's looked a bit more measured in those last 2 than he did previously, even showing new wrinkles with the, you know, that first round arm triangle that he got last time out. I just think he probably won't be able to submit Bukauskas. And I also think that he's not going to be able to get in on Bukauskas the way that he needs to to land his damaging shots. Both of these guys can be a little inconsistent, so I do think the, damn near pick'em odds are kind of perfect, but I do think that Bukauskas will be able to keep Coutilaba at range, pick him apart. The one thing that's bothering me, though, about Bukauskas is that loss to Vitor Petrino has not aged well at all. Okay, and if he doesn't finish Coutilaba, that's a long time to be on the feet with a guy and not get cracked at least once cleanly. And Ion Coutilaba can fucking hurt you. So, if I was Bukauskas, I'd be trying to look for and set up a finish rather than, engaging in a 15-minute fight where that risk of getting hit does exist. Anyways, moving up the card to Jessica Andrade versus Jasmine JASUDAVICIUS. I'm going to be going with Jasmine JASUDAVICIUS here. I just feel like at this point, Andrade has been basically figured out. You just have to stay away from her big looping shots, which also, those big looping shots pose a lot of opportunities for counters, but also what I think Jasmine will be using those overextensions for is shooting takedowns. Jasmine's pretty nasty on the ground. She's not really content in just controlling you. She likes to land a lot of shots, cause damage, make the fight ugly. She's on a 4-fight win streak after dropping that one to Tracy Cortez, but she's looked good ever since. 2 Darce chokes in those 4 fights. A decision win over Mayra Bueno Silva as well. In my opinion, they're both on completely opposite trajectories or sides of their career, right? Jessica Andrade probably somewhat close to being on the way out. Her peak was reached a long time ago, and we've seen her be beat enough times to know what works against her, okay? Whereas Jasmine is kind of on the rise a little bit. I mean, despite the fact that she's 36 years old, okay, which age does not matter as much in the female divisions, but she's, saying that she's on the rise might be a bit of an overstatement. She's not some young, hungry up-and-comer, but I don't think she's at her peak. Despite her age, she still seems to be improving, making adjustments and things like that. So I think that Jasmine will kind of just beat the shit out of Jessica on the mat. Maybe she gets a TKO or that Darce presents itself once more, but either way, I think the fight takes place on the ground and Jasmine JASUDAVICIUS will get it done. Now let's move up the card to the next fight, which is Mike Malott versus Charles Radtke. Okay, I'm very hesitant to do this, but I'm going to pick Mike Malott here. I really hope he's learned from the mistakes he's made in the Magny fight. I know he's gotten a win since then, but it was a very forgettable performance, okay? And one where he played it quite safe, which probably just he so badly wanted to get back in the win column, maybe help to get some of the momentum back that he once had. The main issue in that fight, in my opinion, was fight IQ. He was doing very well on the feet, had complete control of that fight, chopping leg kicks the same way Ian Gary dealt with Neil Magny. And I thought that had he just kept the fight there, he probably would have cruised to a decision or maybe even gotten like a late TKO or something like that. But he very badly wanted a submission. He went chasing it, forgot all about position. And then I think he maybe even gassed out a little bit due to chasing the finish so hard. Obviously, we know what happened. He got reversed and finished in that last minute. Now, what I'm worried about in this fight is Charles Radtke, his counter left hook is fucking real nice. He lands it in almost every fight that we see him in, and he's gotten finishes with it. So he packs power in those punches as well as being able to consistently use that weapon. He knocked out Gilbert Urbina with the left hook. He knocked out Semmelsberger his last time out as well. So he's got power in his hands, and he does have a very educated left hook. I think if Mike Malott does not engage in like long drawn out exchanges in the pocket, he should be able to keep away from that left hook. I'd like to see a lot of leg kicks from Mike, and I would probably expect to see some takedown attempts at some point, as I think his submission game is the best part of his overall fight game, as long as he's not fucking rushing it. Okay, like where he's best at is when he lands a good shot on the feet and then he jumps on a submission. When you have your opponent hurt, you can kind of get away with going submission over position, right? Because they're a bit dazed or whatever. But in that Magny fight, that was not the case. He just tried to rush through the positions to get to the submission. And ultimately, it costed him. So, hesitantly picking him. I do think he's crafty. I think he should be able to find a way to win. And I don't think he's overly chinny. So, even if Charles Radtke does start to land that left hook, I think there will be enough time for Mike Malott to make adjustments, maybe in between rounds or something like that. Moving up the card, okay, main card, Benoit Saint-Denis versus Kyle PREPOLEC. And for whatever reason, the UFC's website won't let me expand this fight, so you're just going to have to look at it as is, okay? Now, I'm going to be picking Benoit Saint-Denis, I guess. If this was still the Joel Alvarez fight, I would have picked Alvarez. But Kyle PREPOLEC, or PREPOLEC, whatever, is taking this on very short notice, okay? This guy's a bit inconsistent throughout his career as well. I have a feeling that this was basically just a convenience factor, right? He was probably very close in proximity to where the fight is being held, and was able to make the weight. So I do think that he is better on the feet than Benoit Saint-Denis, at least technically speaking. But I don't think Benoit Saint-Denis is going to fuck around on the feet, okay? I think he needs a win badly after his last two, and I think he's going to try and get this guy down as quickly as possible. And while Benoit Saint-Denis has now lost to Poirier and Renato Moicano, the guys that PREPOLEC has, I don't know how to say his fucking name, I'm sorry. The guys that PREPOLEC have lost to are nowhere fucking near that level, okay? We're talking losses to Shane Campbell, Austin Hubbard, Nordine Taleb. These are decent guys, but they're not on the level of Moicano or Poirier. And I don't see a real, like, signature win on Kyle PREPOLEC's resume that sticks out to me, where I can compare it to some of Benoit Saint-Denis' fights in the UFC. So I do think that BSD takes him down, and I think he will find a submission at some point. And listen, dude, let me tell you something, okay? This is the worst city in my entire fucking country that these people are in right now. Do not be surprised if Benoit Saint-Denis gets a bigger pop from the Quebec crowd than the Canadian Kyle PREPOLEC, okay? Just wanted to throw that out there. Either way, let us move up the card to Alexa Grasso versus Natalia Silva, okay? Now, I'm going with Alexa Grasso. They've got Natalia Silva at more than a -200 favorite, and I don't quite understand it, okay? I know she's kind of flashy as far as women's MMA goes, but I don't think that's going to work here against Alexa Grasso. Alexa Grasso, I think, knows very well how to deal with kicks at this point, considering she trained three full training camps for Valentina Shevchenko, right? I think she won't be worried about the takedown in this fight either, so she'll let her hands go a bit more. And while Silva has been beating like Andrea Lee and Jessica Andrade, Alexa's coming off a trilogy with the best 125er female at least ever. So, you know, early on with Natalia Silva, I was kind of impressed with all of her, you know, flashy kicks. Her lead leg is very quick. She can whip up a switch kick like nobody's fucking business. Very flexible hips, and all the rest of it. And it was cool to see like a female actually going out there with, because, you know, the women's, they have a hard time the women have a hard time generating power with the hands. And I always feel like if you're a guy and you struggle with throwing power shots with your hands, you should learn how to fucking kick, right? Because I don't care how unpowerful your hands are. If you hit somebody in the head with your shin, you can knock them out, right? And so with Natalia Silva, I appreciated seeing that because the women have a hard time hurting girls with their hands. And so why not throw kicks? But over time, once she got past her first couple of opponents in the UFC, something I've noticed is kind of an inability to set them up to actually make those kicks a bit more impactful, right? She's gone to a decision in her last three, when initially the hype came because she was finishing chicks with those kicks. She got a spinning back kick finish, if I'm not mistaken, and then I think she landed a switch kick to the head with a combination that followed it in her very next fight. So we were, you know, elated to see a 125er female finishing people that way. But as time goes on, like in the Andrea Lee fight and the Jessica Andrade fight, while she very clearly won those fights, I feel like she's using her kicks more of like a jab rather than a fight-ending move. So sometimes I feel she just kind of spams them, and I just don't think that's going to work against Alexa Grasso. I think, like I said, Grasso's not going to be worried about the takedowns. I think she'll let her hands go a lot more. She's probably, you know, unbelievably educated on how to defend against kicks, counters for kicks, and all the rest of it. So, and you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Grasso try and maybe take Silva down and, you know, play some jiu-jitsu a bit with her there as well, because when Valentina was getting her down in the last fight, Alexa Grasso was very quick to throw up some submissions and things like that. So maybe just to get Silva off her game a little bit. Either way, let us move up the card to Jose Aldo versus Aiemann Zahabi. Okay, now this was a weird matchup to me. It still is a weird matchup to me, but I wish they would have given Aldo something a little bit better, more fun, kind of more appropriate for this stage in his career. Now, they are both older, but the way that it's being kind of, not marketed necessarily, but Aiemann Zahabi is kind of, it looks like he's on the come up, but he's actually an older guy. So it seems like they're feeding Aldo a contender, either fucking way. I'm going to pick Aldo. Okay, but I will say, I would not be surprised one bit if we see Aiemann Zahabi try to do exactly what Mario Bautista did to Jose Aldo. Every opponent of Aiemann Zahabi's, or at least his last 5 or so, has a pretty clear and distinct game plan. Like, every single fight has a different game plan. And it's been working. Like I said, he's won 5 straight, 2 KOs within that streak. Like, he has looked good. But so I wouldn't be surprised if the game plan for this one is to push Aldo against the fence, because we saw that against Mario Bautista, he maybe struggles a bit with getting off the fence, maybe relies a little bit too much on referee intervention and things like that. Now, I do think Aldo will be a bit more urgent if the fight gets put there, just so it doesn't end up happening to him again. I think he'll be opening up more on the feet as well. And even in that Bautista loss, we saw flashes of like vintage Aldo, you know, beautiful boxing combinations. We even got some leg kicks thrown in there. He's also very crafty, obviously, and the level of competition that Aldo has fought and beat is almost unmatched. Even in his losses, not even the guys that he has beat, but his last 3 losses were, of course, to Bautista, who, despite boring us to death, is quite good, is a younger contender, right? Now, before that, it was Merab Dvalishvili and Petr Yan. Merab might be the best bantamweight of all time, even if you don't like his fight style. Resume-wise, it's fantastic. And Petr Yan is one of the craftiest motherfuckers, one of the most skilled individuals I think I've ever watched fight. So I do think he's going to be able to get past Zahabi here, and hopefully we get him a better, you know, more appropriate matchup after this one. Either way, let us move up now to the co-main event. Valentina Shevchenko versus Manon Fiorot. Now, they've got Manon Fiorot on the UFC's website, at least, as a -155 favorite. That, to me, is fucking wild, and I don't really understand it. I know a lot of people have been impressed with Manon Fiorot's striking ability. As far as females go, I'm just not impressed. Not really at all. And I don't think she even has like power. I don't think that it's going to be threatening to Valentina Shevchenko at all. And maybe if this was at a time in Valentina's career, let's say that Valentina slowed down the way that she kind of has in the last few years, but did not adjust her style to match that, right? So if she was still primarily trying to strike with girls, even though she's clearly declined, in my opinion at least, then maybe I would pick Manon Fiorot to get it done. But I don't think that's going to be the case. Valentina Shevchenko, despite it being not the most fan-friendly, has very clearly altered her style to match where she's at in her career. We see a lot of, like in the Alexa Grasso fight, the third one, a lot of takedowns, and she's not even overly willing to kind of improve position or go for you know, to try and damage her opponent or submit her or anything like that. Like, she is very content in just winning rounds by essentially neutralizing her opponent, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen here. Like, Valentina Shevchenko. So if I'm thinking about Minot Fiorot's last few matchups, right? If we look at Erin Blanchfield, whose MO is pretty fucking clear. She wants to get you on the ground and either submit you or get a TKO. Minot Fiorot was able to do quite well against Erin Blanchfield. Now, my problem is that Erin Blanchfield, while she's good at the things that she's good at, she's really fucking bad. Okay, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but she's really bad at the things she's not. So in order for her, Erin Blanchfield, to me, it's kind of like Kayla Harrison, becomes the most predictable person on the planet if they are not able to succeed almost immediately. Like, if you're able to defend a couple of takedowns, Erin Blanchfield only has one entry. She like lifts up her lead leg and she kind of skips inwards. And Minot Fiorot, credit to her, was doing a very good job at just timing that, because you've created a massive big motion that I can see. Like, it's a huge tell when you skip in every time you want to exchange. And that's kind of what Erin Blanchfield does. And she only really has a couple of entries for her takedowns off of that, because I don't think that her footwork on the feet is that good. Whereas Valentina Shevchenko, as far as female, especially 125ers go, her footwork on the feet in terms of striking is probably leagues above most of them because of her Muay Thai experience and all the rest of it. And she does have more than one way to get you to the ground. And she's also not completely out of her depth if it's stuck on the feet for a few minutes. Like, if she tries to take you down and she doesn't get it right away, she's okay and skilled enough and knowledgeable enough to remain on the feet with you for a few minutes and then try again in a little bit, maybe try to set the takedown up a bit differently. Whereas somebody like Erin Blanchfield is going to just spam the same entry over and over and over again. And eventually, if you can defend it once, why the fuck can't you do it every other time? Do you know what I mean? And like I said, I don't think Minot Fiorot, I don't think there's anything to fear in terms of power. So I don't think Valentina Shevchenko is going to have to give her like an insane amount of respect. I could see Valentina getting countered a few times. Because, you know, I said that she's not as predictable as Blanchfield, but she is a little bit predictable on the feet. It's just that she has a wider variety, so she could go to other things. But I just think that Valentina is going to take her down. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw her submit Minot Fiorot in this one, because I don't think that Fiorot is that good on the ground, and Alexa Grasso is kind of dangerous on the ground. Alexa Grasso also kind of created the necessity for Valentina, if she wanted to win her belt back and not have it go to a draw or not, you know, get finished again, she needed to get that fight to the mat. And I just think she's going to be able to do it here as well. She's very good at timing her takedowns. She's got pretty strong control. And yeah, despite slowing down in her old age or whatever, Minot Fiorot's not that old either, or not that young rather. So it's like, you know, it is what it is. I'm not sure why Fiorot is a favorite, but either fucking way, dude. Let's move on, okay, to the main event. Belal Muhammad versus Jack Della Maddalena. They've got them both in green shorts here. That might be problematic, okay? Either way. I'm going to go with Belal Muhammad. I wish I could not. I wish I could pick Jack Della Maddalena. Jack Della Maddalena is one of my favorite guys to watch fight at welterweight. I think he's got beautiful boxing combinations. His footwork is fantastic. I love the way he goes to the body as well. He fucking rips the body. I think that his lack of grappling is vastly overstated as well. I think that his grappling is quite good. Like his jiu-jitsu and things like that. The problem is his first order takedown defense, okay? His second order is very good. He can get back up to his feet sometimes, most of the time. But his first order, it's almost like there's a lag. Like Jack Della Maddalena needs a fucking SSD or something, dude, because we need faster loading time when somebody shoots a takedown. It's like the takedown's already there by the time he starts sprawling, which obviously is not going to work at this level. But I just think that Belal Muhammad, you know, I know a lot of people don't like his style. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of it either. I don't, you know, Belal Muhammad is not even remotely close to being my favorite fighter or anything fucking resembling it, okay? But I cannot deny that he is quite good. He's gotten better, and in the areas that he once kind of lacked, he's kind of made up for it. So on the feet, he looks a lot better than he used to. You know, he's not the fastest, he's not the most powerful, but that doesn't really matter when you set the pace the way he does, when you can mix it up, go to the wrestling if you need to, you can grapple if you need to. Like, his kicks and his punches, all of it have gotten so much more technically sound. And I don't think, you know, he's one of those guys also he's not really afraid to get hit. So he's not going to let Jack Della just take his time, set up combinations, get where he wants to get. I think Belal Muhammad's going to be pushing the pace right from the get-go, putting Jack Della on the back foot, right? Making it hard for him to set and throw the way he would like to. You know, Jack Della could crack him. He's got very good footwork, as I said. He's very good at getting in and out of range. But I went back and watched the Gilbert Burns fight last night, as well as the Basil Hafez fight. Now, that Basil Hafez fight is, people are fucking insane. Daniel Cormier and Dominic Cruz were acting like Basil Hafez was up 2 rounds. After the first 2 rounds, I couldn't fucking believe it. He was doing literally not a thing with those takedowns. Jack Della Maddalena was piecing him up on the feet, at least from the second round on. You could give the first round to Basil Hafez, Hafez, whatever, not the second or the third. Jack Della was unloading to the body, head, landing beautiful combinations, and then Basil would get him down and do fuck all with it. So I think that fight gets overstated a bit much, how poorly he did in it. I think the main thing there was a fight IQ issue, because he kept trying to jump the fucking guillotine rather than defend the takedown. And his coaches got mad at him for it in between rounds. In the Gilbert Burns fight, I think that one is a perfect example of what I mean by his first order takedown defense is not that good. Like, it's lagged. But his second order is good. He's able to create a scramble and get back up to his feet. I think people overstate how poorly he did in that fight as well. I had it 1-1 going into the third. Right? And then people say, yeah, but Gilbert won the third. Up until he got fucking killed. You know? That's the problem. He didn't win the third. And even if Jack Della wasn't able to get the finish after that moment, after that big knee, that would have won him the round. So, but I think that Belal Muhammad's better than both of those guys by a lot. Okay? I think that Belal Muhammad is maybe a bit more competent on the feet even at this point than a guy like Gilbert Burns, who, you know, obviously has more knockouts than Belal Muhammad, but doesn't. There's no real like sophistication to his striking game. He's kind of a meaty hooks type guy. Gilbert Burns is, and Basil Hafez is not great on the feet either. Big meaty hooks. That's about it. Belal Muhammad is good at, like in the Leon Edwards fight, which I think he'll approach this fight similar to that one, where he's not gonna let Jack be comfortable. He's gonna immediately go at him, start pushing jabs in his face constantly, even if there's nothing behind them. Just constantly give him something to worry about. And I think it's probably a decision victory for Belal Muhammad over Jack Della here. Another interesting factor about this fight actually is, I just thought of it, the fact that they're both coming off of like pretty nasty fucking injuries. You know, Jack Della was out for a long time because he broke his arm in that Gilbert Burns fight. Still managed to find the finish, by the way, which is like why I wish I could pick Jack Della. He is such a fucking savage. He's an absolute monster, and he's got a Lord Voldemort nose, so I think it's very cool. But his arm he struggled with after, because there was infections and things like that. And Belal Muhammad, of course, had the infection in his toe as well, which, you know, take it with a fucking bag of salt, I guess. But Chael Sonnen said that he almost died because of that infection, which it can happen with infections. So both of them have had a part of their body that they've maybe had to be a bit gingerly with. Okay. And I think that the arm is a little bit more substantial, a little bit more consequential than a toe for Belal. So I do think that Belal Muhammad is going to be able to get it done in typical Belal Muhammad fashion, kind of just take him down when he feels the need to, whenever the fuck he wants to, probably, honestly. And I think that that opens up stuff on the feet as well. I think that Jack maybe becomes a bit hesitant to throw because he doesn't want to get timed for a takedown and things like that. And I think that Belal wins a decision. But you know what, dude? I would be so fucking elated if that didn't happen and if I was wrong and Jack Della knocked him the fuck out. That would be beautiful. I would love to see that because Jack Della Maddalena and Ian Gary would be a fantastic fight, in my opinion. Either way, dude, that is it for this picks and preview video. Okay, like and subscribe, all that good shit. I'll be live streaming the fights on Saturday, so if if you want to stop by, say hello. Anyways, I will see you at the next video. Bye bye.